Hello everybody and welcome back to Dirt Road Nation.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jake.
We are the Dirt Road Men.
Fuck yeah, we are.
And this is podcast episode 1.
Oh, the other one was 0.
This one is slightly less chaotic. We thought about it slightly more. The audio is still probably a little rough, but the dogs aren't breathing hard and most of the other stuff's been dealt with. So we're going to go through all our news and stuff for the week. Don't just roll into it. You gotta
I'm not.
spit on it first.
Darling, we going in dry.
So, we had a pretty eventful week, I think, but, almost all of last week was tied up in the Rittenhouse trial, which we will touch on momentarily. We had a couple other big stories kind of over the weekend. So, if you're interested, if you have some comments, we get anything wrong, please put them down below. Best way you can help us out is share this with somebody else. Get some eyes on it, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is, we're trying to present a different product to bring on a different audience and see if we can make some more people happy with content like this. And, also kind of forces us to stay up and educated on the news.
Yeah, and back on, he said if we got anything wrong, please feel free to politely inform us of the facts maybe we missed.
Or as impolitely as possible. I might tell you to fuck off, but thanks nonetheless.
But yeah, I mean, either way.
The interaction helps us out. Yeah, we're just going to be doing this every week, coming through, bringing, the news of the last week and kind of going over it. We take the time to do some research and try to make sure we've got everything right for you. I try to go through, at least when I look up my stuff, and pull from a couple different sources that maybe think about it a different way so that I get a general idea of the opinions as well. And we'll give it to you and let you know what we think. So, anyway, what did you have up first?
I had Jacob Chansley.
Oh, is this, this wasn't the guy that was in no, that's coffee, never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Jacob Chansley, a lot of people might know him as the QAnon shaman.
Oh, the most famous Viking of the last millennia.
Yeah, he got sentenced this week. I think this week.
Yeah.
I didn't actually.
Well, this last week since our last show.
Well, yeah. 41 months.
Damn near 4 years in prison for walking tour.
Yeah, for his role in the January 6th Capitol raid. I'm going to put raid because I personally, I'm going to go ahead and put this out there now, I don't see anything wrong with what they did. There were a couple of people who did do things that I would kind of disagree with, but for the most part, it's kind of a civic duty. If you're upset with your government, then
Yeah, I think my biggest gripe about January 6th is that they were unorganized and they accomplished basically nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're going to go in, that wasn't even a half measure. Like, but, yeah, plus, a lot of the Norse pagan community gets irritated when I say that he's the most famous Viking of the last 1,000 years. You're not a Viking unless you're going where you're not wanted and taking things that don't belong to you. Mm-hmm. Which is exactly what this man did. And he is the most famous Viking of the last 1,000 years because he just sacked the capital of the most powerful country in the world. So, like it or not.
Yeah. He rolled in with a fucking buffalo helmet and a spear.
Yeah.
He got, his sentence was only matched with, for the most of anybody charged with that.
Uh-huh.
He got the highest sentence matched with a fellow by the name of Scott Fairlane.
Mm-hmm.
Or Fairlam.
Yeah.
Who was a former MMA fighter who beat the shit out of a cop.
Yep.
Jacob Chansley went in completely nonviolent. I mean, he had a spear, so he could have been violent if he wanted to. He didn't do anything. He didn't harm anybody. He just went in. He took some videos, took some pictures. But he pled 100% guilty to one count of unlawfully obstructing an official proceeding. And then, like, during the court, he 100% completely owned everything he did. It's like, yeah, I did all this. This was me. I feel bad about it. He does have a history of mental health problems. But the judge even said in his 34 years of being a judge, or being in the legal system, his argument, like his personal statements towards his defense was like up there with like Martin Luther King Jr. and I didn't write down the names of the other guys he stated, but the big guys like that. And like you could tell, it sounded like from the articles I read that the judge was wanting to kind of go a little more lenient on him, but also at the same point he was like, well, you did kind of run through the Capitol building with a spear and fuck up shit, so. Which, personally, again, I kind of commend him for. You're upset with what's going on with your government. It is your civic duty when you get upset with your government to take your problems, take your grievances to your government and make them their grievances. Which, I guess maybe he didn't actually have any, but that's the kind of stuff that all the riots of last year and should have been doing.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that statement. I do think that they sort of made an example out of this man. That's an absurd penalty for what he did, and I think that, because he's the most recognizable character, they hit him with the most intense sentence, especially given the only comparable sentence was a dude that literally fought a cop.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to hit story 2, just because it is still something that needs addressing, and it's something I was super excited about when it happened. I cheered, and that was the not guilty verdict that was put out at the Rittenhouse trial. That came in Friday after days of deliberation and after an MSNBC reporter was chasing down the bus and ran a red light and got pulled over by a cop chasing the bus.
Whose bus?
The jury bus. An MSNBC reporter was chasing the jury's bus.
That is ridiculous.
Yep, and they got barred from the court for it, and then other reporters came to their defense saying he was just trying to figure out who the jurors were.
That's not good. They're supposed to be somewhat fucking anonymous.
Yeah, there were several reporters that just straight out made excuses for the guy and said that, yeah, he was just trying to find out who the jury was, not intimidate them. What the fuck do you think's going to happen when you put their names out there? Especially with the threats and stuff that were already being received by people.
What about what I personally would consider a less than subtle threat of the prosecutor pointing a fucking firearm throughout the courtroom with his finger on the trigger?
Yeah, that was insane. It would have been hilarious if the bailiff would have put him down on that one.
What was his name?
Binger.
Binger finger? Little Binger? Little Binger.
Little Binger, yeah.
Little Binger. He's probably really lucky I'm not a bailiff and they're in that courtroom. Nothing against him, he's just doing his job. Like, he probably had a agenda, but that's his job, is to...
Everything against him, he should have refused to do it. Fuck that guy.
Okay, there's that too. I'm just saying, like,
somebody would have been in that courtroom, supposedly.
I'm telling the camera I would have shot them. I don't want the FBI at my door tomorrow.
Says the guy that called for, heads on pikes last week. Let's fucking.
I'm not saying don't put her on bike. I'm just saying. Shit, I had a fucking nightmare about this shit last night.
All right. So I'm gonna rapid fire a couple things that I've heard people getting wrong about this case. I've heard several people say this, and I even saw a news article to this effect, that Kyle just got away with shooting 3 black people. First off, everyone he shot was white. If you don't know that, you obviously didn't pay attention to the case. You need to shut up. If you don't know any of these, you obviously didn't pay attention to the case. You should probably shut up.
Pedo Krillin was hella white.
Yep. Pedo Krillin.
He was hella
Shit.
short. Sorry.
Yeah, the man was like 5'2", 5'3", and the prosecution actually genuinely tried to argue that he was not a threat because he was a manlet. So, woo! So that's just gold. Anyway,
Go ahead.
he did not take a gun across state lines. The rightful gun owner that owned it did. He did not straw purchase a gun. The person that supposedly straw purchased it for him literally still had possession of it. Just let him use it there. So if they purchase it and then they keep possession of it, they didn't straw purchase it. They just bought it and said, "Hey, you can use my gun." His dad lived in Kenosha. His family and friends live in Kenosha. He works in Kenosha. So this shouldn't even have been their thing is dumb, ridiculous. He could have signed his life away to the military at 17. He can be there at 17. His family owned, I believe it was his grandparents owned, a gas station near where he was.
Was that the gas station that they were
I don't know if it's the same one.
the burning dumpster?
I don't know if it's the same one.
But
I
you
couldn't
could
find
still
that
see,
info.
but you could still see where, like, hey, this is the same basic business my grandparents are in. Like,
He was there cleaning stuff up. He put out a dumpster fire, and that was the start of the exchange that ended with Rosenbaum being shot and then Kyle being pursued as he attempted to run to police. He even said on video, "I'm going to get the police," as people continue to chase and attack him. And then when he stopped the people attacking him, he literally put his hands up and walked towards police.
mm-hmm.
So there's the gun charge. The gun was legal for him to have if he was over 16 in Wisconsin due to the way the hunting law is worded. As long as it is a long rifle, not a short barrel rifle, he is allowed to have it. So that's why the gun charge was thrown out. People are saying the judge was partial because he leaned towards the presumption of innocence, therefore not allowing people to call the people that Kyle shot victims. I don't know if you've heard this before, but we have the presumption of innocence in the U.S., so that's how the judge is supposed to act. That is not being biased.
Yeah, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, so people are a little absurd with that. The judge went off on Binger. This is another thing where people are saying he was slanted towards Kyle. Binger tried to pull evidence into the court that the judge denied, and then questioned the defense's silence, which is their right to remain silent. Thus, his comment that it has been basic law in the country for decades.
Yeah, under the Miranda rights. It's the first thing they tell you when they arrest you. You have the right to remain silent.
Finally, and this is, I think, the last major point that I've seen people arguing that Kyle did wrong in this case or what have you, is that he provoked a fight and therefore can't claim self-defense. First off, they never proved that he provoked the fight. They had one grainy photo where his rifle was on the wrong shoulder for him to be pointing it at anyone, which likely means it wasn't pointed at the camera in that grainy photo. It was down under his arm. But even if he did, the way the law is structured, the moment he started fleeing, he then no longer was provoking and therefore resumed his ability to defend himself according to the law in his state. Once he started fleeing, if someone pursued him and stopped him from fleeing, he was then allowed to defend himself again. So even if you're correct, which you're not, in that he provoked it, the moment he started fleeing and Rosenbaum started chasing him, he had his right to self-defense back, and then he did not fire on Rosenbaum until he was cornered with a burning car in front of him and heard gunshots behind him and turned and saw Rosenbaum coming at him. I think we've now covered literally everything that people keep misconstruing about this case. Stop it. This is why he was let off. And then finally, you mentioned someone. What if he was black? He wouldn't have got off with this. Yes, he probably would have.
Andrew Coffey the Fourth, March 19th, 2017. A SWAT team raided his house or apartment. I'm not entirely sure. For drugs. He was a prior felon. Probably for drugs, which is probably why they were going for him. I couldn't find anything on his actual offenses before. But, so the drug raid, the SWAT team kicked in his door. He shot back. If somebody kicked in my door, I'm not asking questions.
Yeah.
You can yell at me that, yeah, I'm the police. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, not call me first, motherfuckers. He shot back. He was then charged with, they killed his girlfriend. He was then charged with second-degree murder, 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder of law enforcement officers, and 1 count of shooting or throwing a deadly missile.
I want to know more about that count.
Me too. I couldn't find anything more about what was going on with that. So the SWAT team kicked in his door, started shooting. He shot back. They killed his girlfriend. He went to jail. This was in 2017. His final trial date, I guess the whole thing might have been on the same day, but it was the same day as Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
He was found not guilty on all but felon in possession of a firearm.
So even though he was a felon unlawfully possessing a firearm, like a lot of people want to argue Kyle did, which he didn't, he was still given self-defense for the shooting back at the police.
He killed one, and I'm guessing the 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder would be he wounded 3 others.
Yeah.
And he threw, or maybe he had a fucking RPG. I don't know.
Fire in the hole, dude! What the?
But yeah, I don't know the exact circumstances. It was old enough I couldn't find anything in the first 2 pages of Google on like what actually happened. And I'm just lazy enough. I wasn't going further than that.
You learned enough that it proved the point that we were trying to make.
Yeah.
So.
The only issue I had with the entire case was that he was charged with felon in possession of a firearm. If he was out on the streets, he was able to walk free from jail or prison or whatever, he should have had 100% all of his rights back as a human being.
Yep.
I don't care if it's guns, voting, anything.
Yeah.
All of the rights should be, if you're free to walk the streets, you should have all of your rights.
Yeah.
I don't care what they are. I don't care how controversial it is. That's just...
Yeah. I agree with you 100% on that. The only concession or compromise I might give on that would be a probation period when they first get out of jail.
Yeah.
Like, while they're on probation, maybe they still can't own a gun or vote. But the moment that probation is over, It shouldn't just be a lasting thing that they don't get their rights back. It should be like they have that little test period. Okay, you've done fine for your test period. Here's all your rights back.
And if there's somebody who we don't think should ever be allowed to have that,
then they shouldn't be back in society. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Did you have that listed as a separate story on your thing?
I did, but I kind of intended to tie it into your
Okay,
thing,
so let's go into something else next then, because we've talked about Rittenhouse a lot. It was kind of the main subject of our last one. I do have some other stuff I want to get to, but yeah, let's move on to the next thing.
So that'd be me.
Yes.
The next one I have is Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
I wrote it down as Jiz, Jizzlane. Ghislaine.
I don't know how to say her name, but that sounds good to me.
Yeah. Thank you to my wife for coming up with that.
Yeah, and who's she, Jake?
My wife? Or Ghislaine?
Yeah.
Okay, probably that one.
Good Lord.
The last thing I said was my wife. Anyway, Ghislaine Maxwell. She was Jeffrey Epstein's kind of right-hand whore. I'm biased on this one, if you can't tell. She was his number one go-to person to find children and then groom them to then be willing to have sex with adults.
Yeah. Elijah Schaefer had a woman on last week who is an activist with human trafficking, and she told her own story, and it was terrifying. I know I'm deviating from what you're saying here, but I think this is worth mentioning.
Add on to it, please.
She, when she was 15, had somebody start talking to her online, Facebook, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably email back at the time. Anyway, she talked to them for 2 years online, and then she was homeschooled, raised in a good Christian household. She wasn't even necessarily poorly socialized, per se. However, once she turned 17 or 18, she decided she wanted to go off to Hollywood because she wanted to be somebody, and this person had helped convince her that maybe she could be somebody. And she got there, and within 24 hours, she had been given her first drink of alcohol, her first shot of heroin, and sold to a man that lived in the Hollywood Hills. Because that is how fast these groomers will move. And they sold her that she could come out to Hollywood and be somebody, and then they manipulated her so well that they almost made her feel like it was her idea to go. And then when she thought to put her foot down, they were like, yeah, I've been talking to you for years. I know who all your family are. I know where you're from. And if you do not comply, not only will I kill you, but I'll go kill them. And so, like, this is no joke, man. Watch your kids. Let them know that this kind of evil's out there. Because it happens. Anyway, I know I had to get real serious on people there for a minute, but tell us more about this bitch's trial.
Her trials only just began. They're still in jury selection. Jury selection started on November 16th. Opening statements for the trial will begin on November 29th, so the Monday after Thanksgiving. This thing pled not guilty on all counts. I don't even call it a person. I don't know what to call it, really. Because that is horrible, horrible stuff that...
Yeah. She...
undoubtedly is guilty. So it's not even really a person at this point, so...
Yeah.
The only reason I would say why don't we just take it out in a field and would be because there are other people who they could be tied to, they could implicate in the trial.
The flight logs and all that were admitted into evidence with this trial that we pulled up back when. I still haven't read all of it. It was like 2,000 pages. I got to like 400 and something.
Yeah,
It's long and it's repetitive. The most important thing was the list.
why, Forrest, why?
You can find these documents publicly, and you should bother to look through the list of celebrities named and politicians.
Out of the celebrities, the most disappointing one that I saw that wasn't just like a layover thing. Like maybe their private jet had problems. They're hitching a ride with Jeffrey Epstein, touched down on their island, switched planes, you got fuel or whatever, and fucked back off. Was Tom Hanks.
Yeah, who conveniently moved to Greece, where that's not a crime now. So.
Yeah, like within weeks after it not becoming a crime. So, yeah.
Yeah. Any more on her trial that you got handy there?
No, that's all that's really come up so far on the actual trial. So.
Alright. Well, then we'll move on to what most people are probably going to consider the main story of the week. And that is what happened yesterday in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Which is just kind of the other side of the... there's a major metropolitan area. What is it? Minneapolis is in Minnesota. What's the big city in Wisconsin?
Green Bay?
No. I can't remember. But it's in this. It's on the opposite side of the same large city's metro area of Kenosha. Like, if Kenosha was Lawrence, then Waukesha is like Casey Mo
Okay.
or Liberty.
Okay.
A Christmas parade was going on yesterday, and
Why?
because it's Christmas time, Jake.
No, it's not. It's Thanksgiving time, Zach. Anyway, so
So the Christmas parade was going on in Waukesha, and Jake is now apparently sympathetic with the perpetrator of this case. And
you beat me to the joke.
Daryl Brooks,
That sounds like a good guy to me.
a black nationalist, is he took a 2010 Ford Escape
Oh, fucking.
and plowed through this Christmas parade, killing 5 people, 3 of them in their 70s, the youngest of whom I believe was 51, and injuring 48 more, including some children that are still in hospital in critical condition. He had just been let out of jail 6 days earlier for running over his girlfriend with the same car!
How the fuck did he get the keys back?
Or no, it might not have even necessarily been his girlfriend. It was the mother of his baby. Why is the fact that it's the mother of his baby particularly important? Because he went on the sex offender list at age 24 for having a kid with her when she was 15.
Oh.
He's 39 now. This was 15 years ago.
Wow.
So a convicted sex offender who literally hit his girlfriend with the same car at the beginning of the month, got out of jail a week ago today,
Okay.
and 6 days later ran into a crowd of people, killing 5 and injuring another 48. What was he doing when he went into this crowd? Was it retaliation for the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict? Perhaps. I saw some people say that. Why did he go into this crowd? All we know currently is that he was running from the police because they were called because he domestically abused his girlfriend. Again.
I retract my previous statement.
Yeah! That's why I threw it out early, because I knew you wouldn't say it later.
Yeah.
Also, notable in the character assassination I am levying at this man, he was a SoundCloud rapper. So,
You could definitely fuck him. He was a SoundCloud rapper, he was a girlfriend beater, he was a kitty diddler, and he drove a Ford. Fuck him.
yeah, I don't know why this guy wasn't in prison. This is a prime example of us saying, like, hey, if they can't have all their rights back, then don't let them out. Why was this guy out? His bond, he got out of jail, the price he had to pay to get out of jail was $1,000.
So he
For
had
running over his girlfriend. She had tire tracks on her pants.
Jesus Christ. $1,000 bond would have been a $10,000 bail.
Yeah.
That's not a lot.
No.
Running over somebody.
Yeah, and just in case that bail was set because perhaps maybe he wasn't going to be a threat outside of that. Wrong!
Question. Who the fuck would bond somebody out of jail for running over their baby mama with a car?
My former mother-in-law's next door neighbor. He literally ran her over and then she bailed him out.
Wait a minute. Did the bitch he ran over bail him out of jail?
Not this one,
Oh, okay.
but the chick I
Yeah,
just mentioned,
okay.
yes.
God, that's stupid. Okay, never mind then. I guess baby mamas be bailing deadbeats out of jail.
It's insane, man. That's kind of the biggest thing that's happened. That just happened yesterday. By the time you see this, it'll probably be tomorrow morning, based on how long it took me to edit the last one. But
I wouldn't say. The information that I know, I bet he was probably walking through a Family Dollar or Dollar General or some kind of dollar store, and Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas came on, and he just got pissed.
we're gonna lead into them dark jokes like a day later. Just in case you think it's too soon, we will joke about anything and everything at any time. We will even throw ourselves under the bus. If you've never seen us before, know that that's a thing that happens. No one is safe.
Nobody. If I had to, I could probably be a stand-up comedian.
Alright, so what do you have after this one for him?
The Build Back Better bill
Oh, God.
passed the House. The covers a lot of things, going from healthcare or like what's that? What do you put your little kids in when you gotta go to work?
Daycare.
Like daycare kind of child care to healthcare, like full-on healthcare to climate change. Some of it on face value, I will not lie, doesn't sound like a terrible thing because, like, if you get help with child care and you get both parents working in the house, or both parents of the house working, then yeah, that family can then greatly further their themselves. But with like daycare stuff, it's usually a lot cheaper just for the whichever parent decides is gonna be the one to be home to just stay home.
That's it.
That's it. The rest of it's a whole bunch of county bullshit.
Well, I'm going to go back and raise a little bit of a challenge to the stuff that you said doesn't sound too bad on its face.
Okay.
Because as not awful as those things are alone, the idea that everybody has to pay for everybody else's kids is a problem.
Yes. So I'm just saying, I can see where people would be like,
You
okay,
can understand where your opposition would back this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I think any of it's a good idea.
Give people tons of free shit. They're happy to back it.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if the new bill says that we're going to afford everybody free hookers, then obviously men are going to vote for it.
How much coke does it allow?
Man, go ahead.
The one of the biggest things though that I'm really seeing is air quote large corporations are gonna get fucked.
Yeah.
I'm
Why
not
do you
talking
say
just
that?
fucked. Like elephant dick, no reach around, pound in the ass, jungle fuck. They're because corporations right now can get on different programs. They can get on, they can find all the tax cuts, so they can kind of almost or some of them completely net out, like zero out their taxes that they have to pay because they're following all these regulations that the government put in place to say, hey, if you do this, you put extra filters on your smokestacks on your plastic plant. If you do these other things, you'll get tax cuts. So they can kind of zero almost or completely zero out their tax cuts. So they're not really paying taxes. I mean, they are, but they're not. They pay throughout the year, but they don't owe anything at the end of the year.
You worded that strangely.
I worded that probably really wrongly, and I don't even understand
You should
what I just
probably
said.
also speak up for the camera. You got real quiet there.
That's okay. I don't want to sound super stupid. I don't know exactly how the tax things work. I just know that like some companies, like plastic companies and metal refinery companies, they can do extra steps to cut down on the taxes that they have to pay. Some of them are able to find a bunch of different things that they can do that don't really impact them or don't really cost them anything, and then it zeroes out the taxes that they have to pay, and they're looking to get rid of all that. So the on the big companies.
Yeah.
Big.
Also, this bill, it still has to pass Congress, the Senate, after the fact. But if it does, and it very well could, the increase to the debt would be insane.
Yeah. Well,
Did you happen to take that number down?
I didn't take the number down. No, I didn't. But if it was 100% as glorious as it sounds on the way that the current government administration puts it out, it'd be fucking, like, a lot of it sounds pretty fucking great. It would cut down on our deficit, is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Climate change was another big thing in this bill.
Yeah, I don't give a shit about climate change.
I don't either, really, but if we could do something to where, like, it's not
We
gonna...
were net zero producing or something to that effect?
Yeah, like, if we weren't really... Like, we could still refine all of our oil or produce all of our steel or any consumer goods without further polluting the planet, then that would be fucking great. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. It's just, in order to do that, I don't think it's feasible. Really.
No, not presently. A lot of this bill seems to be a reskinned, stretched out version of the Green New Deal. And that is just absurd. Steven Crowder read the whole thing in its entirety. It's like 5 pages. You can go look it up.
It was only 5 pages.
The Green New Deal was.
Oh. This new one, it looked like a big chunk of
it's an
PDF
omnibus
download.
spending bill, essentially.
Yeah.
They hooked it on with a bunch of other stuff. That's how they were able to get it anywhere near passed. But, yeah, I think that it's a massive step in a wrong direction in a lot of ways. wrapped in stuff that makes people feel good.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was kind of trying to convey, but I don't know how well I word things.
Sounded like you were going back for it there for a minute.
Warlord Bird. No, I don't agree
No,
with
I
fucking any of it, but
yeah, I get what you're saying though. You're trying to afford like the best argument to
yes.
the people that disagree with you.
Yes.
And I like that, and I admire that you still have the spirit to do that, because I have zero tolerance for you fucks. I can't stand any of you. I don't care how it makes you feel. But
that's one of the things I like about you. You got rid of all that bullshit while you could.
I don't know. I like the opportunity to fire away there for a second. Because I was like, man, that was actually a pretty favorable version of presenting their arguments for them. I'm going to shit on them now.
Yeah, and I 100% expect you to. I do not disagree with anything that you said. I was just saying, like,
yeah, no,
on
I
face
get
value, I can see where somebody who might, like, read the bold printed without the fine print, like, that sounds nice. I want that.
Yeah. So we'll jump into our next Biden crap show story. Joe Biden had a colonoscopy over the tail end of last week, into the weekend.
Oh, this is Max.
Yes. So he underwent a general physical and colonoscopy because, you know, he's old.
Yeah.
That said, I think any president pretty much would have to undergo one of these.
Right afterwards, they asked him how he was feeling, and
Did he say pretty crappy?
No, he said he was feeling great. He's getting ready to celebrate his 58th birthday.
Did he really say that?
He did, 100%.
Oh my god. The biggest reason that this matters is because while he did this, he had to go under anesthesia, and while he was under anesthesia, the 25th Amendment kicked into effect. And for several hours, for the first time in U.S. history, a woman, Kamala Harris, was holding power in an official capacity. Because if anybody knows anything about Woodrow Wilson's presidency, in an unofficial capacity, it's definitely happened. However,
I think the actual time was 86 minutes.
was it? I thought it was just over 2 hours, but I didn't see an exact time figure, so they made it sound like about 2 hours.
Close enough.
Either way, first time in American history, a woman held the power, and I would just like to say, if anybody ever should teach a course on blowjobs, it would be porn stars or Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris gave one once and used that to catapult her career all the way to the White House. Obviously, she must be very good at it.
And for between an hour and a half and 2 hours, she was
Effectively the president.
Effectively the president of the United States. She was the most powerful person in the world. Why did she not use that time to go fuck shit up?
Hey, you know what? I'm not going to complain about somehow surviving that. So, I genuinely, when I first heard about this, I was like, oh, this is how they're going to do it. Biden's done now. He's just not going to wake up.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
Fucking
No joke.
insane.
I was like, this dude's just not going to wake up, and they're going to give it to her. They're not even going to wait until his 2-year mark so she can serve essentially 10 years. Nope. They're just going to do it. But he got up, so...
A lot fucking easier than the Kennedy shit.
Yeah. I really thought he was going on that one, man. I've just been waiting for them to install her, but she's less popular than he is. He has a very low approval rating. The aggregate is like right around 40%, which is the low end of where Trump's at for his time in office.
The highest numbers I have seen have been 36. So.
Yeah, he's in like the upper 30s to 40, at like 40 max. I'm being real favorable with that. It's like one of the worst approval ratings of the president ever. The approval of Kamala Harris, the vice president who effectively does nothing. And not her specifically, the vice president, generally speaking, does very little. Normally, throughout history. They've been assigned random jobs. Dick Cheney was basically actually running the country. But, while shooting motherfuckers in the face.
Hey. Never mind.
Anyway, her approval rating is lower than his. So, that's bad. That's really bad.
Maybe
people like Kamala less than they like him.
Maybe the thing I saw was like an average between the two. And it's like his administration.
36 is a number I've heard with him too.
Okay.
I just assumed it was someone cherry picking the least favorable poll. Because the last time I personally looked at the RCP aggregate, and what RCP does is they take all the polling institutions, both the conservatives and the liberals and the ones that tend to try to strike it in the middle, and they aggregate all those and then average them.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they come up with their number. And the last time I looked, it was exactly at 40, which was like the lowest Trump's ever got. I think it dipped to 39 for like a week when he bombed Syria.
Which was fucking metal.
Yeah. That's all I have for that story. Did you have another story?
No.
Okay.
Fuck.
What's up?
Back on the Build Back Better Business, whatever thing.
The Build Back Better bill.
Yeah, the last thing I had written down I didn't get to. What they are promising on the Build Back Better bill, if it passes, is an economy that will be just as good as the worst it was ever under Trump. That was my closing fucking statement, but we got distracted on...
Yeah, they like to say that Trump sucked, but we saw the best economy we've seen in more than my lifetime. By a lot. Under him. Pretty much up until Rona.
Yeah.
I believe it was back all the way to Ike. Like the 50s.
Ain't accounting for inflation. Like general inflation.
Up until the Rona, yeah.
Okay. That's what I was saying. It was like up until Rona, like it was that would be accounting for inflation. Because I remember gas on our $1 a gallon, like regularly. So
yeah, but the economy, when accounting for inflation, was still very good.
Yeah. Inflation happens. It's going to be a constant.
Well, it doesn't have to be, actually. Deflation can happen.
It
just doesn't happen if you're deficit spending.
Yeah, it doesn't have to happen, but it does, and...
Yeah, it's going to continue.
Yeah. We're just...
Pretty much once we ditched the gold standard, we were fucked.
It's like getting stuck in a mud hole, throwing your fucking front diff out.
Alright, so last story for today. The state of Ohio has introduced an anti-abortion law that steps it up from Texas's law.
What was Texas's law?
Once there's a heartbeat, no more abortion.
Okay. Wow.
Ohio's effectively bans all abortions. All elective abortions.
All elective abortions.
Period. Past, like, conception. You get a morning after pill, after that you're host.
Shit.
There's no elective abortion, period. There's no exception in this law for any kind of whatever. If it's if it's your choice that you could have the baby but you're wanting to have an abortion, you cannot do that if this bill passes.
Wow.
And for the crowd that likes to see bills like these and chant that men should not be making laws about women's bodies, don't worry, we got you. This bill was introduced by Representative Jenna Powell.
That's a very feminine man's name.
That's a very feminine woman's name. She's actually pretty good looking.
Really?
Yeah. And I can say that.
I'll take your word for it.
She introduced House Bill 480, banning all elective abortion in the state of Ohio, with the same caveat for enforcement, the same method for enforcement as the Texas law, meaning anyone that knows anything about someone providing an abortion or aiding someone in getting an abortion can sue the person providing that abortion or aiding someone in getting the abortion for a starting $10,000.
Jesus Christ.
So, like, if you know someone in Ohio that has an abortion performed for them, you can't sue them. You cannot sue the person seeking the abortion, but you can sue the doctor that performed it for $10,000, and the law says you can have it.
Doctors have insurance for that kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll talk about insurance fraud later.
All right.
That's a joke. I'm not going to fucking Ohio.
Yeah.
You're lucky to get me into Topeka.
I did think it was interesting that this was introduced by a woman, and I'm sure that people are going to completely ignore that when they try to say later that men should not be making laws about women's bodies.
Or they're going to compare that to Kamala Harris's Got Cock 9000.
That is not where I thought you were going with that, bud. You threw me all the way off. They do so this bill's just been introduced, hasn't passed anything yet, but it is actually expected to pass because Republicans have a major majority in the Ohio state legislature, which would make Ohio the most stringent state on abortion thus far, with Georgia being like third, Texas being second. Give it a little time. I'm sure Texas will not be big on being one-upped. Just waiting for Florida to like kick in the door real fast. But yeah, I'm actually okay with this law. This is a position that divides even, you could say, conservatives, right-leaning people. I would say that more than conservatives. But the pro-choice thing actually kind of flex into this wing as well. And while I can understand some arguments for it, the kid didn't do anything, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a life at conception. So yeah, you get to the morning after pill, and then after that, get bent.
And that is actually somewhere where we disagree on something.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that used to be your position, and I was more lenient than that.
I have done some more thinking on what is actually life.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you consider life ending?
Ending?
Ending. Where would you consider life ending?
Well, I would consider life ending when the person stops breathing and their heart stops and their brain function ends.
Okay, what if you can keep breathing going and the heartbeat going? Would you enter that brain function?
If it will continue going of its own accord, unaided, then I would.
Okay. I would put life ending at where, like, if someone was in an accident, like a car accident or something happens and their brain function stops, for the most part stops.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they can breathe on their own and they can, whatever, their heart's going to beat on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no brain function, like somebody in a coma.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that they're dead. You pull the plug and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would also put that at... So I would then put that at where life begins. Brain function.
Mm-hmm.
Which, is it too much further than a heartbeat?
It's about 12 weeks, right?
12 to 15.
Mm-hmm.
15 at the latest.
Mm-hmm.
It has been definitely seen to show at
Go ahead.
12, they have had people show heartbeats and brain function earlier than the 15 and around 12.
Yep.
So that's where I would put that. I wouldn't necessarily say, the heartbeat or, exact conception, because...
Here's why I would disagree with that. And I like that I actually get to have this discussion with somebody that's not going to throw a fit. If not acted upon, that person's brain will never continue to function.
Mm-hmm.
But if not acted upon, that child will continue to gain function. So, the fact that it would happen were you not to do that is different to me than if this person cannot continue without your interference.
Okay, well, with that...
That's why I would make that distinction.
With that...
I do think it's hilarious that we switched those perspectives over the course of the last, 10 years.
We can talk about that later. With that... it is being acted upon, though.
How's it being acted upon?
Because the woman who is carrying the child, their body is, whether they like it or not, acting upon that. They are then incubating them. They are the life support system.
Mm-hmm.
And up until the brain function, it would basically be like just pulling the plug on a brain dead patient at a hospital.
As far as how it would functionally affect the child.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm not. I don't know how the comments are going to go, but I'm not condemning you for that. It's an issue that I've moved on. It's the weakest issue I've had up until very recently.
Yeah.
Mostly because I have no control over how it goes.
Yeah, that's because you got a dick, so you don't got control over that kind of shit.
Well,
so.
and even on the law side, the likelihood that I personally am going to be able to, even if I were to take an active position in legislature, affect major change on the abortion debate is pretty slim.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, regardless of the fact that I personally think life begins at conception, the way I think the issue should be handled is not the way it is presently handled via Roe v. Wade, which is at the national level. I think it should be a state-by-state thing.
Yes.
I am perfectly happy to let Ohio ban it completely and Virginia to have their newborn baby grinder. That's their problem.
Was that in Virginia?
It was, yeah. That was their former Democrat governor, Ralph Northam.
Oh. Kevin.
Yeah, he was the guy that was talking about, if they were to be born, still killing them.
Just out the chute into the grinder?
Well, I believe the context was they survived an abortion attempt, now we're going to put them on a table and make them comfortable and have a conversation with the parents about whether or not we're going to let them live. And that was all he really said.
Oh, shit. They used to do that kind of stuff back in the 18 and early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
The baby would be delivered, and then whether or not the parent wanted to keep them, they would then just lay them on a table and then fuck off.
Yeah.
So they weren't actively killing the kid or whatnot, but they weren't helping it.
Yeah, and that's pretty jacked up. And actually, the best argument I've heard for abortion is not a good argument unless you also want to endorse slavery, which is that people throughout history have often had babies they didn't want or babies that were defective and discarded them in the wilderness or what have you.
That's what fucked up Leonidas, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes. However, if you want to make arguments for it was done this way through history, therefore it's fine, you are then also making an argument that can be applied to slavery, so be real careful about using that as your moral justification. I do like that we got to kind of dip into a little bit of a friendly debate there, though. Especially given that we have the opposite perspectives that we had the first time we ever had that conversation.
My perspective on that is it really like an emotional how I feel. It's how I feel it should work by law.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, that's how you think the law should fall, but you personally would be upset if, say, I'm wading into some weird water here. You don't want somebody to abort your kid at any stage.
No, I do not.
Okay, there we go. I had to like pause and figure out how I wanted to word that.
I had a friendship between several people and over a similar conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know I wouldn't personally like. How I feel. I agree more with you, but on like a more reasonable, lawful state. I think brain function at the latest. Like, define when you think brain function's going to be. If that's 15 weeks, I am for giving either way. Like, give it a week either way. 14 or 16 or...
Well, I actually had this debate with somebody before, and they and I argued back and forth. I started at conception because I intentionally picked conception, and then I did a very inflammatory argument of, like, I don't care if it's a child rape. Suck a dick. It's not the kid's fault.
Yeah.
But I did that intentionally to upset someone. Not any one person in particular, but I wanted to get someone to come at me with their best and angriest argument so that I could argue against it. We ended up at about 12 weeks. Was probably the best compromise that we could suss out. And I did the math, and that 12 weeks would save something like 150 to 200,000 lives a year. And that is a perfectly acceptable compromise for me.
So 12 weeks would be 4 months?
Yeah.
Right?
3 months.
3 months?
First trimester.
Okay.
Because a month is about 4 weeks.
Okay. Anyway, there's some math in there. So...
Three-quarters of abortions happen before that point.
You should know that you're late. Halfway through your second month after missing your first period. Now, there are some times where a woman will still have her period and be pregnant. It's like it was going to be like a twin thing. One of the eggs got fertilized and one of them didn't. Or, stuff like that. But you should still know something's up within 12 weeks.
You should definitely know within 12 weeks. My ex actually moved me the furthest towards conception on abortion that anyone has, which is hilarious to me. Because I was much more liberal on it than she was. My ex-wife.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow.
She was heartbeat.
Huh.
That was something she always argued for, and I thought she was too stringent. And she's like, I will tell you right now, I will know before 6 weeks. I was like, okay. And I didn't agree with her at the time. And she kind of worked me back there, and her being someone that was more Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump, and fell on the more liberal side of a lot of things. For her to argue that way, I think gained more ground in convincing me that I wasn't holding women to a level of agency that I shouldn't be. And that was the largest reason that I was lenient on abortion, was essentially like that soft bigotry of low expectations. I was affording women extra room like they were too irresponsible to take care of themselves. I didn't think of it that way until she put it that way, but whatever. So, yeah.
Sure.
We went down a big fun rabbit hole there at the end.
Yeah.
That'll, I'm sure, interest some people.
Yeah.
I do know that we went to school with a guy whose entire political view changed based on that single issue. He was about to have a child,
Mm-hmm.
and when his view on abortion flipped, that one axiom
Mm-hmm.
forced him to completely change how he viewed the world, and then slowly over the course of a couple of years completely flipped his politics.
I wouldn't say my initial real views have changed. I still feel the same way. It's just I am more willing to give in the other way.
Like legal concession?
Huh?
You're more willing to give legal concession?
Yes. That's because where I think life actually ends, then I had to go back and okay, so if that's where life ends, if brain function is where life ends, where does brain function start initially with a fetus or a baby still in the womb? Okay, then that must be where life has to begin.
Yeah, I get your logic behind it. I really do.
Now, emotionally, and where I would like to, where I think things probably would be, I go as far as saying heartbeat, but yeah, conception would be better.
Yeah. I will say that my view of this did change prior to my religious views, and that matters to a lot of people in the sense of, I don't want you to think that I think abortion should be illegal because Jesus, even if I were in favor of a theocratic monarchy, but it's not. It predated the religious shift I made.
But someone could twist all of that back around, because you have said that no matter if it was if the life was there due to a rape, it's still alive. The story of Jesus sounds a whole hell of a lot like a rape to me.
If you don't want to grant that it was an angel, yeah.
You could twist that around too if you were a fucking heathen.
Yeah. Oh man. How did you make this? God helped me.
Do you see how that sounds, Mary?
See, where I actually thought you were going to go with this, and where if I were attacking myself I would go, is that perhaps the principle that changed for me, that made my abortion view change, also led me to religion, I guess. And therefore they would be related, most likely. If I were to try to grant someone the best possible argument to levy against me, because I haven't thought that one out that thoroughly.
I'm not really gonna argue against you. I don't disagree with your fucking train of thought. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I get you. Well, anyway, we've been babbling for significantly longer than our average hour, I believe.
Fuck yeah, we have.
So, hope you enjoyed this week's news stories and our little abortion discussion there at the end. I'm sure everybody's got opinions. I'd love to hear them. Till we see you again, I'm Zach.
I'm Jake.
And we are the Dirt Road Men. Just kidding, we don't give a shit about your opinions.
I would like to see them, though. So comment.
Yeah, no, it was a joke, please.
Please?
Just comment on the video!